So hello everyone, welcome to SomTU VMAC. I am Mrs.Sisam Bajgain, and in today's episode we'll be talking about finance, emotional intelligence and ethics in organization. So as a guest in today's episode we have a CIMA certified senior finance manager with an MSc in business analytics who joined Unilever since 2009 as an intern. So as a guest in today's episode, we have Mr. Fahd Sheriff, the Chief Financial Officer at Unilever, Nepal. So Mr. Sheriff, I'd like to welcome you at School of Management.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
So to start our conversation, at first I request you to share your experience as an CFO at Unilever, Nepal, and to ask you to share your experience in the starting of the conversation itself is many of the audience of SomTU VMAC is the MBA pursuing students, and as MBA is a highly prestigious degree, they have a fear that if they join as an intern, they might not get opportunity to reach up to the executive level position. But you are an example here who joined as an intern and is now a CFO. So your experience might motivate them to get out of the dilemma and join any kind of organization, not just Unilever. So that might be a source of motivation and example. So can you please share your experience as a CFO at Unilever Nepal?
Yeah, so I think CFO or a finance manager or an accountant who has an intern in finance, the role is very specific to crunching some numbers, looking at a few spreadsheets, and of course making sure that the organization is making profits and the revenue aspect of it is being taken care of. So I think in different levels, at the CFO level you have a broader view, at an intern or a accountant level you have a very narrow view on the specific budget or the cost center that you're looking at. So I think what helped me get here to where I am today is the ability that I focused on the fundamentals of my accounting practice, applied them quite strongly, and learned from the mistakes that I made throughout that career. It's been almost 13 years with Unilever now, and that's what I think has helped me come up to this stage.
So we just came to know that you have MSc Business Analytics and you joined that later on in 2018, which was very late from your other degrees. So you find the need, your job position find the need, or you find out that it is an emerging subject and you need to pursue, or what made you go and pursue business analytics as your academics?
So I think the business degree I did gave me a broad understanding of all functions of management: supply chain, marketing, human resources and finance. Then when it came to my professional studies with CIMA, I was able to master the management accounting principles and be an expert in that pillar, so to speak. Unlocking my fellowship membership right now. With the evolvement of time and with the applications that Unilever started introducing, for example the SAP ERP system and some of the cloud accounting schemes and the servers being moved out, I had a bit of curiosity to learn a little bit of IT. And if you really understand, information technology is also based on certain hard-coded rules that protect the organization and also give that assurance that the business decisions are made with the right spirit in mind. So and the volume has increased of data, and previously we used to analyze something in Excel was not possible any further, and as a result we needed to use some of the big data tools, some Power Pivots, maybe some bit of visualization tools like in Power BI. And that's what led to learning masters in business analytics as opposed to a MBA or a specified finance MSc. And I think it helped a lot, gave a lot of different perspectives in how to harness data, how to change, interpret certain behaviors of numbers or consumer insights to the business, so that we can really cater to the consumer demand quite aggressively as opposed to competition. So that's the edge on business analytics.
So here at the School of Management also we have MBA IT, MBA GLM, MBA Finance and Control, General MBA and all. And in General MBA also we need to choose some specialization later on.
Yeah.
So as you jump from finance to somewhat IT related subjects, so how important do you think the academic you choose will be helpful for your job position, or your specialization should meet up to your position, or how?
So I think getting first-hand work experience at the earlier level is a good way for you to understand where your strengths lie. So example, when you're doing a bachelor's and if you can get an internship at that point, that will give you a good flavor of, okay, whether this is my favorite area to work. For example, if you look at finance, whether you want to do financial accounting or taxation or auditing, if you do that first 6 to 1 year kind of experience will give you a pulse of how your job is going to be as you grow up the career. And then in terms of your MBA or your MSc, you need to see something that's emerging in the trends and focus on capitalizing on one of those skills which are futuristic. It's definitely the current management theories and the application of management doesn't change much, but the situation in which you need to apply it is different. So example, like when you have a liquidity crunch or when you have a macroeconomic issue, the responses that you gave 5 years back may not be really relevant at this point of time. So that's the agility I think you need to develop, and whatever the course you choose should help you be able to unlearn and relearn quite quickly. So that's why I think I chose something different. But to be honest, finance and IT is not largely differential. Yeah, it's complementing each other. Something like a person who does marketing may find sales also somewhat relatable. HR and law is relatable, I think. So it's good to be in that mid-section as opposed to being a specialist, unless you're really sure that that's your cup of tea for the long run.
So you just told that the principles and theories of management remains the same, but the situation does not remain.
Yes.
And you shared that you are here for like 1.5 years in Nepal, and previously you were in Sri Lanka as the supply chain management, supply chain finance head in Sri Lanka. And we all know that the economy of Sri Lanka is already crashed now. And Nepal's economy is also in rest season. It's a very critical situation for Nepal's economy. So as a person who worked there in that situation and here, can you find any kind of linkage or any financial advices or your analysis that according to you, being a CFO at the company, working there and here, can you share it with us?
So I think the Sri Lankan economy reflects a lot of resilience. In the sense that we had a 30-year-old war, then we bounced back to growth, and now we're in a crisis. We're bouncing back from that with IMF bailout. So I think there's a great level of patience in the people. And when I look at Nepal as a country, patience is in those people as well. There's a lot of tolerance, specifying that the Maoist conflict, the earthquake, and now we're in this kind of slow movement of the economy. It's not going anywhere. The problems remain the same, and there's a little bit of political turmoil in terms of who's governing what. So indecision kind of prolongs the problem, but it doesn't mean that the consumers are not undertaking our products, or the market is not active. People need to be serviced, and finding unique ways to do that is what keeps the challenge exciting. some of the learnings from Sri Lanka to here is that I would say the financial crunch is somewhat similar, but it's a little better than what it is. You're not having hyperinflationary situation. Inflation is a bit managed, and to that extent, we keep a close watch on where the profit trajectory is heading to, and what are the active measures we can do to either pass on the inflation or whether we use a savings agenda to kind of internalize it. So that's been the broad reflection in the 1.5 years in Nepal.
So you talked about the tolerance level of Nepalese, like.
Yes.
So do you think this level of tolerance should be more going on, or people should do some actions that would reform, or any suggestions to Nepalese?
So for my faith, tolerance is rewarding at the end of the day. Maybe it's not felt in the very short term, but somewhere down the line.
But sometimes the tolerance will also lead to a very critical situation. We have both sides.
Yeah, I think tolerance doesn't mean you don't voice out when things are going wrong. You need to voice out, and there should be a kind of a listening mode towards those concerns.
Can you elaborate what tolerance, according to you, tolerance in terms of government or like anything?
So I guess if you look at the Sri Lankan context, where people protested and ousted the president, but they just ousting the president at the regime because he wasn't suiting the present situation was fine, but the political system rebounding afterwards with the same party and democracy being suppressed isn't the right way forward. So some of those things need to be addressed, I would say. Similarly, if I will reflect that on Nepal, the root issues of how to empower domestic manufacturing, how to connect the whole country to Kathmandu and the urbanized area. Those are some of the underlying problems that have been unresolved for some time. And if those get addressed and people work, the governing leadership looks at it quite closely, I think there'll be a remarkable change in the short term.
So when you just entered, you told us like Sri Lanka and Nepal is somewhat similar, to find some kind of similarity. So can you just share some experience relating to the culture of Nepal, how you find it difficulty to learn the language or to deal with people? So any kind of cultural experiences here in Nepal?
Yeah, so from a cultural aspect, from
Nepali bolna aउँछ? Yeah, you told that you took the training for language, so Nepali bolna आउँछ भने नेपालीमा भनिदिनुस् न त.
Tore, to some extent. I tried to learn Nepali because I was alone and I didn't know how to interact, and I don't speak Hindi, so I understood that the best way to connect with the team is to be able to relate a bit. So I'm able to say like Basnus, Hernus, Dinus, Linus, things like that.
Okay. Just the terminology.
Yeah, verbs to help me get around. I kind of mix
So you understand people speaking Nepali?
Listening to it now, yes. I think if I answer a previous question, like Sri Lankan language, the Sinhalese language and Nepali language has certain same verbs, like apachalan is the same
somewhat,
thing.
Our lifestyle is also similar.
Lifestyle
the
is also
habits
same.
And all those things.
And it's a tolerant, a country that has a lot of religious tolerance. Like you guys have Buddhism and Hinduism together. There we have Christianity and Buddhism and Hindu and Islam coexisting together.
Have you been to some places of Nepal as a visit?
Yeah, Muktinath. Probably the first time. In the first 3 months I made that trip, and some parts of Pokhara, Nepalganj and Hetauda.
Only business trips or for like travel?
Not to the trekking part of it. Somewhere soon, maybe sometime soon for that.
Alright. like. So you told like to understand people's language, you'll be able to connect, and you are in a position of CFO where understanding only does not work because you are somewhere looking after the money. Like you cannot say like, okay, you are sad, okay, take this money. It will directly affect the finance of the company. So how do you manage the emotional intelligence considering people's behavior, and you have to manage the money at the same time? So how do you manage this? This might be a secret we might want to know from you.
So I think it's a little bit of maturity kicking in. Everyone wants to do the right thing for the business. So I think that trust we should have. And then if that decision, we need to then outweigh it with the consequences of that decision. So what will we gain, what will we lose? And as a financing profession, that's something that I always think. There's always a give and take in the equation. And once the trust is established, then the rest of it is quite easy to manage. When you don't have trust, then the first effort should be, as part of emotional intelligence, is to try to understand what that person is trying to do, trying to seek, and whether it's in line with your policy framework or not. Then it's quite easy to, cater to the requirement, I would say.
You said like we have similarities between Sri Lankan culture and Nepalese culture, but also we know like interpersonal communication and the non-verbal cues we have a different kind of meaning. So there might be differences. So have you have any experience with people when you try to do good, but their perception or their understanding will be somewhat different from what you wanted to do? So have you got any kind of such experience at Unilever?
Yeah. So pleasing everybody is always a difficult thing. I think it's not possible at any given chance. There's always someone who will not be so happy with things. So that you need to accept it. But to answer your question directly, I think you do your best, and the results will speak for itself.
And also you are someone from finance, so if you had been from HR or people's behavior or human science, you'd have dealt more in a different way. But from a perspective, your academics and all those things, might be because of your experience, you will be now able to understand people's behavior. But for our audiences, that might be a very, very difficult task.
So I think as freshers, joining an organization, whilst you have a lot of energy, it's important to take about a good 2 to 3 months to understand the organization's wavelength, understand your line manager, understand the objectives that the team is trying to achieve, and then start contributing towards that. If you try to immediately fit in or change, that's where you meet a lot of resistance and difficult to adapt. So those are the things that I learned when I came to this country. I didn't want to get into a very radical approach of change. I spent a lot of time understanding people. I spent a lot of time understanding how the numbers are moved over a period of time and what are the underlying consequences of those. And those mistakes which happened in the past, I try to prevent it in my projections. And then I guide the stakeholders saying, this is the bare minimum that we can afford, and this is where we should not bypass.
So while joining every organization, the limit will not be your individual management. You have to manage everything internally and externally. So in case of internal, we already talked about dealing with people and all those things. But you will be a representative of some organization when you are recruited there. So you have to maintain the organization's reputation also. So as talking in case of Unilever, it has various privacy policy and all those things. So, and another thing, ethics also comes, and how do you maintain the ethics, the privacy of an organization?
So I think business integrity and ethics takes a business a long way. It's one big factor that allows a business to survive as it progresses in time, because you aren't bound or biased to any political or economical agenda, and as those policies change, your business remains unaffected, and you're able to still maintain that neutrality and impartialness towards particular stakeholders. So ethics is extremely important. It's I think Unilever puts it in a nice way, saying doing the right thing when no one is even looking at you. Yeah, that goes deep into me, and it also has like a spiritual connect to me. So, in context of my experience, thanks to the organization, I haven't had the instances of where I had to get through that uncomfortable patch. We've always been very clear upfront, saying everything is on black and white. There is no gray in the conversation, and there's no any other consideration apart from what's been discussed as we believe.
So we can see the competition in the market is increasing day by day. Like everyone is working for the growth of themselves, right? For the enrichment of themselves. So and they are always seeking some sort of opportunity. So as an individual also, whenever they see some sort of advantages, they move from one organization to another. But since 2009, you are sticking with Unilever. Till it's a long journey in a single company. So what made you to remain in Unilever, or any attraction Unilever have?
So I think Unilever. Okay, so the purpose of mine is also to do better, and Unilever's great motto is also to add vitality to life, and both of those matched to me at a very initial stage. Whatever I did, I felt that the impact was realized, and my line managers kind of appreciated that a lot. There were some learnings as well in terms of failures, but all of those helped me, develop more loyalty towards the business. And Unilever has this very, it's usually classified as a company built by middle class people as a culture, and there is no a direct owner that we represent to, but the shareholders are behind the screen, and it's the management that governs.
Everyone is treated equally.
Yeah, everyone's treated equally. So that gives a lot of freedom. There's good challenge in discussions. There's a good, it's not like Elon Musk is, driving his own agenda no matter what other people says. Just an example. Unilever will have a very democratic approach in taking change. So example is like you might see Surf being operated as a brand here, and Surf in a European country would be represented as Omo or a different name. So that localization, and that allowing the
it is global but local at the same time.
Allowing to do that is, I feel like, is very very
easy to work
very
with.
easy to work with, and is listening to a lot of customers' requirements at the end of the day. So that's why I think helped me stuck into Unilever. And of course the experience is very rich, and even being here at this age,
The diversity in Unilever
is very high.
That might be very challenging
so
I
think now the Nepal leadership team represents everyone in South Asia apart from Pakistan and Afghanistan. So which company would have a leadership team like that? And
it is easy to work with, challenging also at the same time.
So
because so many differences, not just cultural, your lifestyle, your
correct.
Perception, everything will be different, and it will be very hard for you to persuade your colleague also.
I wouldn't say that. I think like how do I say, like a country receptive to tourism, you would also perceive that person from would like to learn. That curiosity comes through. I've seen a lot of senior leaders in my Sri Lankan continent being led by Filipinos, Pakistan, and now presently through Moroccan. So still the company is doing well. There's a wide acceptance to that leadership. And when I look back here, being closely related to India and to have this diversity in our leadership team is very exciting for me.
Right. So we started our conversation sharing your experience as a CFO. Now I just wanted to learn some of your experience. You just have to go to throwback to 2009 when you started as an intern. So if you share such experiences with us, all our MBA pursuing students will have like an insight about how their journey will be. So your experience might add on. So can you share some experience as an intern?
So I joined as an intern to supply chain finance team, and at that time there was a big factory relocation that was happening. So I was an accounts assistant, but it didn't restrict me from carrying my printers from my old factory to the new factory, educating the factory team in how the processor should be worked out, and I was very privileged to see a factory that was established 70 years ago, all those machinery being detached and being reinstalled in a new place, in a duty-free place.
Reformation.
Yeah. So that was a very exciting space. So it was a matter of rolling up your sleeves and doing anything that's coming your way, and what you feel like I can do that. I had that open attitude of doing it without just restricting myself onto the Excel sheet. So that's something I think helped me come all this way.
So you already told that everyone is equal in Unilever and you get a lot of freedom to work. But when there is a lot of freedom, there comes a lot of responsibilities too. So treating equally, you should be able to do the task that is not mentioned in your job descriptions as well. So can you tell us some things about that?
Yeah, I think you have to be cohesive as a team. That will help you spot when some part of your processes are being dropped by your colleagues. So you should be able to tell them, that's, this part needs to be done by you. Let's work together. We're still one company, one team, and we're going for one goal, which is growth in revenue and in profits, right? So complacency should not set in. There should be a good review framework where you, probably sit down once a week, see what are the things that are due to be done, what have you completed, and what's coming up next. That way, your routine is kind of taken care, and you won't have any surprises of, you miss something that's very critical.
Right. So I'm having a very good time with talking with you, sharing, knowing about your experience, but we just know about your busy schedule and the time limitation also. So do you have any kind of suggestions to the students at School of Management, any suggestions for their career?
So thank you for the SOM2 team for getting me here. It's been a good privilege. I was a bit nervous about this because I'm not a very public and outspoken personality. But what I can encourage you is, the internship to CFO journey has really worked well for me, and could be a kind of a dream to aspire and get inspired by this journey.
You're motivating many of us.
So, but the key to it remains on your attitude and how much you want to commit towards it. So the appetite to that commitment, you should have a very long-term view and be a bit patient on getting it, because patience, I think, really unlocks the reward at the end of it. It's not about progressing with your peers. It's about how you unlock your own personal growth over time.
So thank you so much for such an insightful suggestion to all of us here. Also, I'd like to thank you for giving us this time here on behalf of whole SOM2 Mag and School of Management. So I think we've come to the end of this conversation. I hope to have such conversation in the future days also. So with this, I think we've come to the end of this episode. We'll see you in another episode. For now, we are saying goodbye. So
Thank you.
Thank you for